Hi, in today's video I'm going to take a look at integrating mpv.el with Diode in Emacs. And what this is going to allow us to do is open files from within Diode and have them queued up with mpv to play sequentially one after the other. Now there's a package called openwith for Emacs that allows you to associate file extensions with an application so you can open video files with mpv. The problem is, what I want to do is use the mpv.el package that allows us to control mpv from within Emacs. So what I got thinking about was I've got some ffmpeg scripts for things like trimming video and audio, and in one of those scripts what I actually do is check the mime type of a file to see if it's a a video MP4, a Matroska, a WebM, and then what I do is I run a particular function depending on what the MIME type is. So I got thinking, could we do the same thing with Emacs? And I actually came across a post on Stack Exchange by Matteo. Matteo? I can't pronounce his name. But anyway, this led me to thinking about this and actually getting this working. So he's got a mock-up here of some code to actually do this, and what he's doing here is he's actually calling xdg open on the file. So I needed to do some modification with this to actually get it to work with a function instead. So what I'm going to do is come and show you what I've actually come up with. So what I have here, if I come down to mpv played Diode, okay. So this is the chunk of code that I've come up with, and what I'm going to do now is actually show you it in action. And the way that I've set this up is so that it works with evil motion keys. So typically when you're in Diode, you may have set your H, J, K and L keys so that you can navigate up and down and open files. So I can see here, I can come to the desktop, I press L on the keyboard, it opens the file, press H, it goes back a directory, J and K goes up. Pretty standard stuff. So what I wanted was a way to actually do that and have the file automatically opened by mpv, because it's really annoying if you just if you haven't got anything set up and you try and open a video file, it's actually going to open in Emacs, which is not good. It doesn't open the video, it just opens it as gibberish. So what I'm going to do is show you this in action after I've just had a burger tea. So what I'm going to do is press L on the keyboard, and you can see here it's opened up Big Buck Bunny. Now what I'm going to do is have to let me just bring that back to focus, and I'm going to set this to be always on top so it doesn't keep going behind Emacs. So you can see here, this is another thing I wanted to mention. When you, with GNOME on Linux, when you open an application, open a file in an application, that window comes to the forefront. So the first time you open the video, what's going to happen is the focus is going to shift from Emacs to mpv, and you can see up here it's saying mpv, and now Emacs has got focus. So if I press F2 on the keyboard, this is going to bring up my Hydra. So you can see here I've got a Hydra that allows me to control mpv from within Emacs. See, Emacs has got focus. I can press play and pause, fast forward like this, all from within Emacs. What I'm going to do now is actually show you how easy it is actually to queue up multiple videos. So just pressing escape comes out of the Hydra. So what I'm going to do here is go into a torrent of old Laurel and Hardy movies that are in the public domain. So let's have a look here at some of these. I want Toad in the Hole. We've got Toad in the Hole. Yeah, toad in the hole. Classic. So all I need to do is press L on the keyboard and keep an eye on the mini buffer, and what you'll see is added to the current playlist. Okay. So now, if I shift across to MPV and press F8, that actually shows you a list of the items in the playlist there. Okay. Now I'm going to switch back to Emacs here. If I press F2 and I'm going to pause it, what you see is we've got this Hydra here for playlists. So what this does is, this is a set of key bindings to control particular playlist functions. So we've got N for next item in the playlist, P for previous item in the playlist, E to jump to the playlist entry, or R to remove the playlist. So if I press N, you'll see what's happened is it's now shifted across here to the Laurel and Hardy movie. So let's just go through and click and queue up a couple of videos. So I'm in Emacs here, so I need to escape the Hydra. I'm just going to come through and just randomly select a load of videos to add to the playlist. So now if I press F2 and pause, okay, what I can do is I can press E, and what that's going to do is that's going to list all the items in the playlist. So what you'll see here is we've got Big Buck Bunny, and then you see here we've got Toad in a Hole, and you can see there's an asterisk over here. So this is indicating the currently playing item in the playlist. You can also customize this symbol if you have a look in the mpv.el source code, so you can put any symbol you want there. But that's just an indicator for where we are in the playlist. So what I can actually do is just use the arrow keys to move to the next item, for example, press return, and it's going to start. What happens by default is the video is actually paused. So if I press play here, you'll see it's now jumped to that item. So I can press N, P, P to actually jump back to the items in the playlist here. So suppose I don't want Big Buck Bunny in the playlist anymore. I just press the R key, Big Buck Bunny, and now if I press E, you'll see that's been removed. Okay, so that's how easy it is to actually use this. And so I can press Q here, and that's going to quit MPV. And what I'm also going to do is show you how you can set the default options for MPV with the mpv.el package, so that you can set it to be full screen and displayed on your second display automatically. And the advantage of this is once you've queued up all the videos, what happens is the first time you play a video, the MPV will get focus, and you've got to switch back to Emacs. But for all subsequent items in the playlist, that won't happen. So what it means is you can just queue a load of stuff up, have it play full screen on your second display, and actually be able to control it from within Emacs, pause it, fast forward, next playlist item, that sort of thing. So let's have a look at the code now. Okay, so there's a couple of bits to this. So what we're doing is using the mpv.el package. I think we need dired.x as well. But this is the actual bit of the code. So what I've done is rejig this bit of code here, which is working with XDG open, to actually get it to work with a function. So first of all, what we have here is we're defining variables called supported mime types. This is a list of mime types for video and audio. So we've got QuickTime, Matroska. And the reason I'm doing it this way rather than file extensions is because a file extension is pretty much meaningless on Linux. You can create a file extension with a MP4 extension. It doesn't make it a video. If you try and play a text file with an MP4 extension video, it's not going to do anything. It's still a text file. Okay, so the extension doesn't really mean anything. What we want to do is actually examine the mime type of the file so that we can say, yes, that is a MP4, that's an audio file, that's a WAV file, etc. So this is a list of supported MIME types. So we've got QuickTime, Matroska, MP4, WebM, XMP, XM4V. So that's like an M4V extension that you would get with QuickTime. It's typically used, it was used a lot for things like phones originally. Then we've got XWAV, which is WAV. We've got MPEG audio. We've got AAC, so that would be like a AAC file. We've got audio, MP4, and we've got audio OGG. So we've got a list of file types, of MIME types rather. So now the next thing is, how do we actually get the MIME type of the file? So there is actually a command called file, which has a -b -mime type option. And if I run that on a file, so torrents complete, torrents complete Big Buck Bunny, MKV, you'll see that that is a video x Matroska file. Okay, x Matroska. So that is the command that we would use on the command line. So luckily, this post on Stack Exchange had a way to use this with Emacs. So what we're doing here is we're defining a function called getMimeType that takes an argument of a file path. I don't need this to be interactive, so I'm going to remove that. Doesn't need to be interactive. And it's got this string trim shell command to string concat, and then file b mime type shell quote argument file path. So that's basically taking a file path, a path to a file, and then it's sort of running this file b mime type command to actually get the mime type, which is going to be corresponding to this. So now what we've got is another two functions down here. Okay, so the first one, dired find file mpv. So we're defining a function called dired find file mpv that doesn't take any arguments, you can see here. And this is the description here. Start a mpv process playing the file at path and append any subsequent file to the playlist. So if I run dired, I've got orderless here, so I can run dired mpv. You'll see here, so obviously I need to change the way that's formatted because it's not all showing up. So I'll have to look into that. But you can see here, that's given the description and it's actually given the key binding here, L. Okay, so what we've got here, again, I don't need this really to be interactive, so I could remove that because we're going to bind it to a key. But what we've got here is let file dired get file for visit. And this is how we're going to get the actual name of the file under the cursor. So basically what we want to be able to do is actually, wherever the cursor is here, when we press L on the keyboard, we want to get the path to that file. Yeah, makes sense? So we got let file dired get file for visit. So it's assigning this variable file to the results of dired get file for visit, which is going to be the file under the cursor. This is the clever bit here. If member get mime type file supported mime types. Okay, so that's saying if this is if this file is a member of get mime types here, supported mime types, that's the list of supported mime types. And now what you can see, we've got this mpv played dired file and then this dired find file, and this is an if-else statement. And elisp is different in that it doesn't actually have an else like you would normally have in a shell script. You normally type if, else, else if. But the way this works is the indentation. So you can see that this first command is indented more than this one. So this is what's going to be run in the if, and this is the else. So we're saying if this file that we've got under the cursor is one of these mime types here, yeah, a video or an audio mime type, what we want to do is run this mpv played diode and then the file function. But if it's not, what we want to do is run diode find file. Diode find file is the command that you would use to open a file with diode. So essentially what this is doing is it's checking the mime type of the file. If it's a video or audio file, it's going to play it with MPV. If not, it's going to go on to diode find file and just open it with Emacs, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so the next final bit of this is this MPV played diode function here that I came up with. So the way that I did this was actually by looking at the mpv.el source code and the mpv play function and modifying it by actually looking through the code and seeing what stuff does. So first of all, with eval after load mpv, so after mpv has loaded, we're kind of going to load this function up, and that ensures that it's going to work correctly. On the next line here, we're defining a function called mpv played diode, and what it's got here is it's taking an argument of a path. Right, then what we have here is the little description code, and I need to fix that so it's all on one line. Now next what we've got here is if not mpv -- process. So the mpv process is, well, mpv running, there's a process running. If it's not, it's nil. So what we're doing is we're saying what we want to be able to do is two things. We want, if mpv is not currently playing, when we press L on the keyboard, we want it to open the file, yeah. And if mpv is running and has got a file, when we press L on the keyboard, what we want to do is append that new file to the playlist. Obviously, you can't do this the other way around. You can't append a file to a playlist that doesn't exist. So that's why we're first of all checking that mpv isn't running. So mpv isn't running. So if mpv is not running, we run mpv start, expand file name, and then the path to the file. But if mpv is running, what we want to do is run mpv -- playlist append, expand file name path, to actually append the file under the cursor to the playlist. Make sense? So what I'm just going to do is actually come up through the top of the code and actually go through and show you a couple other little bits that we need to have set up. So you need mpv set up. So what we've got down here is mpv should be somewhere around here. Yeah, mpv. And we also want diodex. So I think we use some functions from that. Let me just scroll through. Yeah, okay. This is the next thing I want to show you. And this is integrating evil with diode. So what we've got here is evil collection, define key, normal, diode mode map. And I've got E bound to diode find file, H to diode up directory, but L is bound to this new function, diode find file mpv. So that when I press L on the keyboard, it's going to run the diode find file mpv command. So let me just come down to mpv And what we've got here is the way you set the default options for MPV. So on the command line, typically you can use stuff like mpv dash dash is it dash dash fs, yeah, dash dash fs dash dash fs screen equals 1. Is that it? Yeah. Current complete big buck bunny. Okay, and what that's done is that has launched that video full screen on the second display, and you need both of these options, dash dash fs and dash dash fs dash screen equals 1. Starts at a 0 index, so 0 is going to be your first monitor, 1 your second, and so on. This works with Wayland. Okay, so this also works with Wayland, which is great because what it means is you can actually have it set up so that when you open a video, it's going to open full screen on your second display automatically, rather than you having to open the video, pause it, move it across to the other display, stick it full screen, and move your cursor back. Right, and so this is how we can set the default options. See here, I've got this set to be empty at the moment. Let's just uncomment this. So this is how the options look. Set queue mpv dash default options, quote there, and inside here each of the options needs to be surrounded by double quotes. So you can see here, for instance, I'm running on the command line mpv dash dash fs dash dash fs full screen 1. Took a little while to figure out the actual syntax, but this is actually creating a list of all the arguments passed to MPV, and so they each need to be double quoted. So each option that you need that you're going to use has to be double quoted in here. So this is how you set the default options for MPV. And this is all my MPV setup that I've shown you in previous videos that allows you to jump to the millisecond with MPV from Emacs. So this works by modifying the org timer so that it uses milliseconds. And what you can actually do is have a text file with a list of timestamps. When MPV is playing, you can actually jump to those timestamps from within Emacs. And what I'm also going to show you is how you can actually create a link in a text file to a video so that it's automatically opened with MPV. So let's come through. This is all my MPV stuff. These are the commands that go in the Hydra down here. And then finally what we've got is this section here with the supported MIME types. We're loading sub r-x. Again, we don't need that to be interactive. Diode find file. So again, we've got several bits here. We've got the list of supported MIME types. Then we've got the thing that gets the MIME type. Then we've got the diode sort of command that checks the MIME type, and then finally what we've got here is the MPV played diode. So again, this function here, this diode find file MPV that I've bound to L, what that's going to do is it checks the MIME type. If it's an audio or video file, it's going to open it with mpv.el from within Emacs rather than using XDG or just MPV to open the file, because if we do that, we can't control it with an Emacs, because the way that the mpv.el package works is it starts the JSON RPC interface to MPV that allows us to control it using the Hydra. Again, basically what this is going to do is kind of like replicating openwith, in that what we're doing is, instead of checking file extensions, which as I said is not a good way to check things, we're checking the mime type. So we're checking the mime type. If it's a supported mime type of video or an audio file, open it with mpv. Otherwise, we just open it with dired find file. So what this lets me do is basically, if I come to the desktop here, if I press L on the keyboard here, you can see it's just opening the text file. Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. Again, you can see there's no delay in actually opening these, and I can go back and forth. You know, normally, when I come into here and I press L, you can see it automatically opens that with mpv. Let me just put that on top, always on top. Move that across, and the reason why I've got Emacs not completely maximized is so that you can see that it's sort of currently active here. So Emacs is focused, F2, and now I can control MPV completely from within Emacs here. I can move frame forward, like that, frame forward, fast forward, jump forward. I can put the OSD on, like that, and I can take screenshots. I can insert the playback position into an org document. I can quit, you know. So I've got complete control of MPV. I can jump to items in the playlist, so it just makes it really easy if I want to queue up a load of videos. Previously, what I was doing is with openwith, you know, I'd select one video, play it, move on, select the next video, play it. This way, I can just come through and go bang, 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 and just queue all these up. I'm just pressing L on the keyboard. Laughing Gravy, that's a classic. And again, if I switch across to MPV and press function F8, you'll see a list of all the items come up there. And now if I switch back to Emacs, like this, I have the playlist option, so I can go next. And again, by default, it doesn't autoplay. I think there may be a setting in MPV. I'll have to look. For if I press play, okay, now if it's playing and I move, if it's paused and I go to the next item in the playlist, it's still going to be paused. If this is playing and I skip through the playlist, it's going to be playing. So playing, you can see the timestamp here. Playing. That one's paused there. So as you can see here, what I can do is I've now got these keyboard shortcuts: N and P to jump previous and next, E to jump to a particular playlist entry. Now, it would be nice not to have the full path here, really, but because that's what it needs the full path to actually obviously figure out what it is. So that's kind of why it's showing up. But you'll see here that the asterisk is actually showing you the currently playing item in the playlist. And I can just come down here. I think the auto completion should also work. So if I type chickens come home to roost, come home, see that's now there. If I want to remove a playlist entry, I just press R. Big Butt Bunny, that's removed it. E, you can see now that's gone. So I've now got a complete playlist stuff that I can manipulate. I can jump to any one, either using the arrow keys here or by auto completion. So I've got stuff like embark, consult, and orderless. So that's why I can type help, and it's just going to go to that. So that's great, and I can quit that easily. Just press Q and then escape. So what we've got now is a way of binding mime types to a kind of function that's going to be run when we try and open a file. And if it's an audio or video file, it's going to open with mpv. Otherwise, it's just going to open the file with Emacs, which is exactly what I wanted. So the next thing that I would like to be able to do is mark all the files and then pass them off to the playlist. So what I would like to be able to do with dired_x, there's a functionality to put in a regular expression. Is it a search mark things for regular expression? So I think we can do .mp4. Is it .mp4? No. I guess you just put the extension in, do you? Let's have a look. mp4. Should have read the documentation beforehand. Search mark file. I thought it would be, maybe is it double quotes, or I don't know. But there is a way you can search mark files. Maybe I'm not putting the right expression in. Anyway, there is a way to select a load of files with a particular extension. So suppose this has got like a load of text files, org files, images, that kind of stuff, and you wanted to play just the videos. There's actually a way to select all the files with a particular file extension, sort of mark them. So if I like mark all these files, what I want is a way to pass all those files into mpv. The difficulty is that you can't just give mpv a list of files. My understanding, the way that it works is you have to give it a file first of all to play, and then you can append items to that playlist. And what I'm not sure about is if you could just say mpv append, files to playlist, and give it a shitload of files and have it append them all at once. So can you config Emacs init.el? Okay, thing. Okay, yeah, you got play mpv -- playlist append expand file name path. So what I'm wondering is there a way to kind of modify this function, or create a new function like it, that will allow us to mark a load of files and give them to mpv? But what I think you'd need to do is, from the playlist, you'd have to chop off the first item of the playlist and then give it to mpv start, so that it starts playing that video, and then run mpv playlist append, and either in bulk give it a list of file paths, or what you would have to do is have a list and go through it and run mpv playlist append on each item in the list. So I'll have to have a look at that, but that would be the next progression of this kind of function, the ability to mark a load of files and just go, yeah, play all of those. But as I said, I'll need to actually have a look at how that actually works. So let's have a look at the .config Emacs elper mpv code. So this is the mpv.el package. Okay. So what you can see here is we've got stuff like mpv executable. This is the mpv default options that I was mentioning. And this is how you can specify a set of default options, like full screen. On a particular display, you might want it to always start up with the on-screen display showing, or subtitles or whatnot. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll through this and pick out interesting things. These are like the step forward and backward functions that we use, you know, with comma or the period in MPV to go forward and back frames. Okay, current indicator. So this is the MPV current indicator. This is, I just unmark all of these. Okay, switch back to put that on top. Okay. Right. Now if I press F2 and jump to playlist entry, you'll see, as I mentioned earlier, this is showing the entries in the playlist, and it's showing the currently active playing video with this indicator here, which is the asterisk. Hit that, escape, and that corresponds to this here. So what you can do is you can go through this code, and what you do is you do set queue MPV current indicator double quotes, and then change that, and then close off the doodad. You know, parentheses, brace, whatever. I always forget. And that's how you could change the indicator. And then you got stuff for like the loop indicator here. You've also got stuff like MPV on event hook, an exit hook, so you can actually run a hook when MPV starts or quits. Next one down here. So this is the MPV process and MPV queue. So this is where I was checking the MPV process up here. In this one, if not MPV process. So that's how we can check if MPV is actually running or not. Live P, MPV start. So this is how it actually starts a process. And you can see here what this does is it actually creates a socket, which would typically be, depending on your setup, usually in temp Emacs. And you can see here it's starting at MPV, the no terminal option, and the input IPC server option. And this is what is used to actually control MPV from within Emacs. So that's the MPV start function down there. As strings, MPV enqueue. Again, I'm actually using the MPV enqueue command here in some of these functions here. So MPV queue enqueue, and you can see we've got a screenshot, and the screenshot is a MPV command. If you look at the man page for MPV, you'll see all the commands. So what you can actually do is run MPV queue and then a specific command, and you can then bind that to something in the Hydra. So that's where I'm using MPV enqueue. MPV run command. Let's see if there's anything else that crops up here. MPV toggle video, haven't really used that. But we got this is the jump to chapter. So this is again in the OCD, in the Hydra. Let me just bring that down. So you can see here, jump to playlist entry. That's jump to chapter, and we've got jump to playlist entry. So you can also create functions to jump to different chapters. And we've got remove playlist entry here. So you can see these are the functions that I've pilfered, basically. Chapter next, chapter previous. Okay. Yeah, and so what we've got down here is these functions here, MPV play, and you've got MPV play URL. And as I said, the problem that this is sort of an interactive function, but you can see the problem with using that is I would have to, if I wanted to do this manually, I'd have to run metax MPV play, then give it a file to play, like that. which is a pain. It's too many keyboard shortcuts, too inconvenient. So that's why I created the function so I can just press L on the keyboard. Much simpler. So that's the mpv play function, mpv play URL. Then what we've got here is mpv playlist append thing to the current mpv playlist. If args are provided, they are passed per file options to mpv. So I'm not sure if I'm going to need to, if there's a way I can actually get that to work with multiple marked files, or if I'll need to rejig it a bit. So you got playlist append and mpv playlist append. Yeah, you have this weird thing where you have some functions that are like double dash and then some that are single. So you can see here, this is the bit of the code that I kind of filtered. So what you'll see here, if I come back up to this line, you can see here mpv dash playlist append, expand file name path. So that's this thing here, basically what I was sort of pinching, because you can see it here, that's what it's calling. We've got mpv playlist append, but that's actually calling mpv dash playlist append with this apply thing. So what I did was chopped off that and chopped off that and whacked it in there, and it worked. So this was a really interesting project because you get a lot of, working with things with video. It's quite satisfying because it's either going to work or it's not. So, you know, normally by default, as I said, what happens is if you try and open an audio or video file with MPV, it actually opens, you know, like this series of like ats and, you know, kind of gibberish in the page. So it's really satisfying when you actually get it to work. You press a keyboard shortcut and the video opens on the right display, and then you click another file and it's actually appended to the playlist. So that's why working with things like video is actually quite satisfying. So that's how I found that sort of bit of code, basically, by going through all this stuff here. So you can have a look through the mpv.el source code to actually see what it does. But yeah, basically what this means now is I can actually just come through and easily queue up a load of videos. And again, what I want to mention is the first time I'm on GNOME 44.3, and let me just open dcomp. Okay, and in if you open dconf.org GNOME desktop WM preferences, there will be settings for things like auto raise, focus mode, focus new windows. And what this has got is two options: smart, which I think is the default, and strict. And strict results in Windows starting with terminal not being focused, but can't get it to work. So what happens is the first time you open the video here, what's going to happen is MPV is going to come to the front and be given focus. You can see Emacs has got focus now here. I open the video and you can see MPV is now focused, so that that's really annoying because when you open a video, it gets focused and you think you've still got focused on Emacs, and you start typing and, you know, it sends keyboard shortcuts to MPV. So I'm just going to put that on top here. On top. Okay, so the advantage of this is now that I've got Emacs focused here, as I come through, you can see Emacs has still got focus. So just imagine this MPV was on the second monitor. What it means, I can now come across and just press play, press pause. You can see Emacs has still got focus, so I can go through, I can go to the next item, the playlist. Next item. And again, the way this works with the next previous items is if you pause, if this is paused and you go to the next item in the playlist, it's going to be paused. Whereas if you leave it playing and you advance through the playlist, they'll be playing. Okay, there may be a way of some preference for MPV that you can put in the config that will automatically play, you know, playlist items. But yeah, just keep it playing and press next, previous. Okay, and again, what we've got here is we've got all the keyboard shortcuts: H, J, K, and L, backwards, forwards, forward and backward a frame, pause, quit. Insert playback position into org documents, take a screenshot, show the OSD. We've got the playlist commands here: next, previous, jump, and remove. So E, jump to an item, and again you can use the arrow keys. You've got the little indicator showing you what the currently playing video is, and you can customize that. And if you've got orderless or things like that installed, you've got nice auto completion, bang, brats. There we go. So now what I want to do is actually show you how you can create a org file with a bugger. Come here. Right. So what you can do is actually create links that will automatically play with MPV a file test. So normally if you put a link in, it'd be like this format: file, torrents, complete, big buck bunny. Is that going to be funny with the, yeah, because it's got a you can see here, because this file has got the brackets in here, it's going to be funny. So I'm just going to rename that. Just for the demo. Okay, so that would be like the normal link for a file. But what you can do is actually use MPV instead of file. MPV. Complete. Big buck bunny. I'm using meta forward slash, which I've bound to hippie expand. So that's how I'm getting the expansion automatically instead of typing the file path. So now if I do Control C, Control O, you can see it's automatically opened that link using MPV. So that's how you can create a link to a file that you want to be played with MPV instead of using a file link. So that's just another little quick tip that's useful and easy to do. And I think there's a some setting you've actually got to put in for that, and I'll have a look through the documentation. Let me have a look through my MPV thing. I think there's something you've got to do. Okay, MPV. Yeah, org link set parameters. Org link set parameters, MPV follow, MPV file replace. So this chunk of code is what allows us to create these MPV links in org files and then automatically have them opened with MPV, just using Control C, Control O. And the nice thing about this is it's actually going to pick up the default options that you've set for mpv.el. So as I showed you, you can set, where did I have it here? Yeah, the MPV default options here. So this will basically be picked up with those mpv.el links. So any link with MPV in it will automatically open full screen on your second display if you've got that enabled. So that's another feature of mpv.el, is the ability to create links in org files with a MPV sort of prefix and have it opened with the mpv.el package. I think there's also a way, there's a thing called org file app lists or something that you can also use, but I couldn't get it to work with the function. So that's just an easy way to do it instead of linking to a file. If I see that's not, give it a second, that should open in gibberish. Usually what happens is when you try and open a file here, it will open actually as text as opposed to trying to open the video. So, sort of recap of all this. We've got the default options there. Let me just scroll down, and we've got this section here. So this is the new section with the supported MIME types. So basically what we're doing is whenever we open a file, we're checking if it's one of those MIME types instead of extensions. So this is a superior way of checking what a file is, because, as I said, I could not a video.mp4. So not a video MP4. You can see when I open it by pressing L on the keyboard, it's opening it as a text file. It's not trying to open it with MPV, because what it's done is, if I come across to the desktop, file-b-mime type, not a video.mp4, inode empty. I'll put some text in it, some text. You can see it's text plain. And you can see it's not opening it with MPV, because it's checking the MIME type. You can see the MIME type is text.plain, and text.plain is not listed as a supported MIME type for MPV here, just listing the video types. So it's much safer than using file extensions, which, as I said, are basically meaningless on Linux. They don't have the same importance they do on Windows or Mac. So this is a much better way of doing stuff. And again, this is something that I've done in my own scripts for FFmpeg, checking the MIME type of a file, and then if it's a video file, we run a function to trim the video and output it as an MP4. If it's a MP3, we trim it and encode it with lame, and give it the MP3 extension. So that's why I was sort of already on that track, and luckily, as I said, I found this great post by this guy down here from a couple of years ago, giving an outline of how we could actually do this. But as I said, this was actually using XDG Open, so I had to do a bit of work to actually get this to work with a function instead, because I couldn't get openwith or any of the other kind of way to do this to work with a function. There is dired A-list shell user A-list or something, but that works when you press ampersand or exclamation mark on the file, as opposed to assigning a keyboard shortcut to it. So we check the file, we check the MIME type, and then again what we do here is we're getting the we're using dired get file for visit, and that's basically the file under the cursor. We're saying if is it a member of the supported MIME types? If it is, we run mpv play dired, but if it's not, we run dired find file. Yeah, so this is like openwith, the application package openwith, except we've stepped it up a notch. We're using mime types instead of extensions, and instead of running just an external sort of package, an external application, we're running the function to use mpv.el. And then finally, we've got the mpv played dired function down here, which uses with eval after load mpv. So after mpv is fully loaded up, we'll be able to run this function properly. And then we've got if not process and if not mpv -- process. So the mpv process isn't running, we play the file. If mpv is running, we then append the file. Pretty simple. And then finally we have the evil keyboard shortcuts. Scroll down through here. Yeah. So what we got here is evil collection defined key, normal, dired, mode, map, and I can still use E to run dired find file. But basically dired find file -mpv, you could rename the function if it bothers you, does exactly the same thing as dired find file, except that it checks if the file is a video or an audio file first, then plays it with mpv, but if not, it just opens the file with Emacs. So that's a list of everything that I've been working on so far with this. And again, what I want to do is figure out a way to be able to mark multiple files and pass them in, so that if I've got a directory, if I want to play all these files, rather than having to go through and go L, come through, I'd be running J, go down, then L, J, L, J, L, J, L, for all of these files. While that it would be possible, it would take quite a while. And as I said, you can see here, there are some JPEG files here. So what we want is a way to mark all the files with the extension. So let's have a just look. Emacs mark files extension. Well, it was a I thought it was a yeah, I can't remember what those. I'm not sure why it's not working. Is it .mp4? There is a way to mark all these files, but what I want to be able to do is mark all these files with a particular extension, and then once that's done, it just basically press a keyboard shortcut and have them all passed off to mpv. Why is this not working? Anyway, I have to read up on that. But that would be the next step, basically marking a load of files and having them passed off to mpv. But I think the issue is, again, you'd have to take the first item of the playlist and play it with mpv, then take the rest of the items and then use the mpv append to playlist option. And I'm not sure if you could have to do that individually for each item, or you could just say append all these files in one go. So that's where I kind of got the code. And originally I was thinking along those lines, because I've got a script called trim clip here, as I said. You can see exactly the same thing I'm doing in Emacs here. I'm using file mime type B and the file, getting all the file extensions. So this is where I got all the mime types from, because I've already gone through and done this. So in this script, basically we check. What we do is we've got all these different functions here, like trim video, trim webm. You can see they're all using different codecs, like libopus here, trim AAC, M4A, MP3. So MP3 is lib, MP3 lame. And then down at the bottom, basically what we're doing is we've got a case statement here, and we're going through checking the file type variable, and then depending on what mime type it is, we're running the appropriate function. So I was already thinking along those lines, but I didn't know how to actually replicate the same kind of thing with Emacs. But after a bit of searching, I came across this post, as I said, which kind of led me on the right path. And having a shifty through the mpv.el source code actually gave me the commands I needed for this mpv play diode. And so that's where I got all these sort of different commands from, basically these ones down here, like mpv process, mpv start, mpv playlist append. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that so far. Could be a little bit of room for improvement, as I said, being able to mark multiple files and pass them in, but I just wanted to get the basics right first of all. So as I said, what I can do now is if I come back up to the top, what I'll do is activate the full screen option here. So what will happen now, you can see here --fs full screen. What will happen now is whenever I open a video, it's going to open it full screen on the second display. So that's now opened full screen on second set. You can see mpv had focus there. I can now control it with Emacs. So the advantage of this is you're working in Emacs, you've got a queue of videos set up full screen on your second display. You can just easily hit a keyboard shortcut, in my case F2, pause it. Yeah, I go, okay, I'm not interested in that. Quit, bang, it's quit, escape, and then come through here and then just literally queue up a load of stuff. So I'll just pause that. So you can see, that's what I was saying. The first time you launch the video with GNOME, MPV will get focus and you've kind of got to switch back to Emacs. But any subsequent video you add to the playlist won't shift focus to MPV. So I can now just come through and go bang, bang, just, there, you can see I accidentally hit the wrong key. And this is what I was talking about. Normally, when you open an MPV, when a video file, this was what will happen. So it's really annoying, you know, you're in Emacs and you accidentally press a keyboard shortcut. You know, you accidentally open a file you didn't mean to, and it opens with all that gibberish. The advantage of this is we've got it bound to the normal key, and we can just come through, bang, bang, bang. You can see now I can press E to jump to the playlist entry, and we've got a full list of all that stuff in the playlist. And this is a much better workflow rather than if you're using like openwith or XDG open to open MPV. The problem is you can't queue up multiple files that way, and so every time you wanted to open a new file video, the video closes, but you know, you open a new file, MPV gets focused, you've got to shift back to Emacs, and you've got to keep doing that, and it's really annoying. So having the ability to create a playlist of videos from Diode with mpv.el is much better. Again, we've got the auto completion here, so I can just type wife tab, bang. It's now going to be playing that. If I press space, and then you can say, oh no, you know, I want night owls, and then I want to remove something. I want to remove wife, from the playlist, bang, that's removed. So it's a really nice workflow. And I said, just the one thing that I'd like to be able to improve upon is actually be able to select all the video files in this directory by marking them and then just running a keyboard shortcut to play the first item and then queue up all the other videos. So I'll quit that. And I've been going for a while now, but I wanted to go into some depth about how this works and some of the possibilities. And if I just come back through the code here, mpv.el diode. This section down here, this if not mpv process, mpv start, expand file name path, mpv playlist append, I can reuse this function here with EWW, which I've showed you in a previous video. So with EWW, what you can actually do is basically copy the URL from the clipboard, and then what you can do is you can run mpv play URL and then paste in the URL, and that will play the first video. And then what you can do is copy another URL and go playlist append URL and paste the URL in. And using this bit of code here, what I should be able to do is create a function that will automatically copy the URL under the cursor and then give it to mpv and start playing it. And if it's already playing, append that URL to the playlist. So we'd be able to do the same thing with EWW and Invidious that I showed you in a previous video. Just go through, and instead of having to press MetaX, mpv play URL, paste in the URL, just have one keyboard shortcut that would copy the URL, give it to mpv to play. If it's not, if it's already playing, append it to the playlist. So we can reuse this code for other situations as well. So that's all for now. I'll put links to all this under the video, and hope that helps make using diode and mpv a bit more streamlined than just opening the files one by one. Because normally what you'd have to do is, you know, if you're using openwith, it would open the file. When that, then you've got no way of actually. The problem is once it's opened, you have to switch focus to mpv to actually use the keyboard shortcuts. You can have keyboard shortcuts using mpress to pause the video and play the video, but you don't have an easy way to fast forward, go to the next item in the playlist, that sort of thing. So that's why having the Hydra like this is helpful, because we can play the video on the second display and then just hit a keyboard shortcut in Emacs and be able to control mpv completely. You know, pause it, quit it, go to the next item in the playlist, remove an item, jump to a playlist entry, that sort of thing. So it's much more streamlined. We don't have that issue of having to switch back between mpv and Emacs constantly either. Once we've got the first video playing, we can append loads of videos to it and just carry on cracking on with Emacs stuff, having Emacs focused up here all the time, yet having the ability to control mpv completely without having to switch focus to the player, you know, move your mouse across to the other screen, pause it, fast forward, rewind. And this could be really helpful, for example, if you're following along in a video, in a tutorial like this perhaps, and you know you want to pause it, stop it, rewind it, that sort of thing. It makes it really easy. The other thing, let me just show you again the advantage. Another little recap: we've got the not a video file, which again is a text file with an MP4 extension. It's not opening it with mpv, it's opening with Emacs. And we've got this test thing here, and if I do example 00 and this is hours, minutes, seconds. So hours, minutes, seconds. And what I want to do is actually shift that back to I'm going to shift this back to being empty so I can show you how you can jump to a part in the video. Okay. Close that, we don't need that anymore. So what we've got here is we've got this mpv link. You can see now that is opening up here, and what I'm going to do is press Alt space, always on top. And so what you can see, if I now forgotten how you do this. Where's the video timestamps? Yeah, I did a whole thing on this. You create, basically you can create start and end points in the timestamp, and forget what the flipping thing is, the command to actually jump to the timestamp. I thought it was Control-C, Control-O. But I did that in another video. But basically what you can do is have a list of timestamps and then jump to those positions. But I can't remember how I did it offhand because my brain's in another gear. But have a look at some of the other videos I did and some of the other documentation that will show you that. But let me see if I can do this now. So what I'm going to do is bring up the Hydra, pause it, press I. Okay, there we go. We've got the timestamp. It's instead of the timestamp. I'll press M, and what you can see is putting a new line in there. Then we go forward, press I, and it's putting a timestamp in there. Okay, and I just forget what the keyboard shortcut was. Let's see if is it Control-C, Control-O? No. Forget what the flipping thing was. I've got it in here. But as you can see, I can insert the timestamps, and I just forget offhand what it is I do to actually jump to that position. Was it? Did it need to be? That was an example. Yeah, I forget that. But anyway, what this allows you to do is actually stick in the timestamps of stuff. So it's really helpful because you can have a link to a video, have it open with MPV, put in all the timestamps, and then jump to these timestamps in the video. And the other thing that you can do is actually use these timestamps with some scripts that I've written to actually chop up the video automatically. So you can create a list of timestamps and give it to some scripts I've written, and it will just go through and chop up the video to those exact points. So that's a sort of another sort of thing there. But I just wanted to show you all the different permutations of how things work. So I'll have a go at getting this working with marking multiple files, so that you can basically mark a whole directory of video files and audio files and have them added to an MPV playlist, and also how to actually sort of take the function I was showing you in this init.el file to check if MPV is playing or not, and then either play the video or append it to the playlist so we can use it with EWW. So that's all for now. I'll put links to all this under the video, and hope that helps improve your Emacs and MPV experience.